But I remember I was still, just finished matric, so I was still at home, and I was walking through my mom and dad's kitchen. And just under the arch, I even remember the place and time, I really just felt, I say God's voice saying, go and study theology. So of course my mother was very happy about that.
I always say to people that it was like a knocking on my shoulder, tap, tap. And it's something I always said, not now, well, do something else first. And it took a few months, and then the tap, tap would be back.
And I didn't actually know what it was. I couldn't explain it. So I went and I spoke to my pastor, and he says, I think it's a calling from God. And as soon as he said that, it was as if like a light went on.
And I think I see that as a calling, something where I finally said, okay, this is what I'm going to do.
But I think certainly for those persons who are discerning a call to ministry, my goodness, I would say, the sooner you can be obedient to that call, the better. My own experience has been, that if the Lord really wants you in ministry, you will never be satisfied until you answer that call. Yeah, so the Lutheran Church is one of the official partners with the Faculty of Theology, and they come to Stellenbosch because it's a world-recognized university. Last year we were ranked amongst the top 100 theology faculties in the world, and so they come here. It's a beautiful place to live. It's a wonderful place to study. We have students from a wide variety of churches, Reformed, Evangelical, Pentecostal, Independent, African churches. And then of course we have people who are studying formally attached to one of the church partners, Lutherans, Dutch Reformed, Anglicans, Presbyterians.
I think the ecumenical movement and different aspects of ecumenism, if we could put it like that, has been such an important movement in the history of South Africa that this is, it's impossible to think of theological education and church life as something that's conducted within denominational silos.
And why do people who read, for example, the same book, the Bible, see things so differently? Why is there such diversity?
So I think the more we can have a representative group, both in terms of staff and students, the better that would be for what we can do and how we can serve our constituencies as well as the country.
But they're also on a campus where they're having to test their ideas daily with people who are studying law and economics and politics. So it's a wonderful space for people to both grow in their knowledge and also to develop the skill of being a theologian in public life.
What I loved about studying theology is that it really challenges you. It takes you from maybe your parents' faith, what you've learned, growing up, or your pastor's faith, and you're forced to actually say, what do I believe? Because I'm going to have to answer to people. One day they're going to ask me.
One of the best attributes is curiosity. That's what I'm personally hopeful of seeing in students.
It's an amazing experience. Your eyes get opened. At university, you get challenged, and you come to a point where you're right, this is what I believe.
Yeah, I think the gift of an ecumenical theological education is precisely that when students come here, they get to know colleagues who will travel with them throughout the rest of their ministry. And that's not only people from their own faith tradition, but very often you get sent to a town as a priest or a pastor or a minister and discover, I know the person who's ministering in the Dutch Reformed Church or the Methodist sister or brother who's down the road because we sat in class together. We've already developed a relationship. But more than that, even just going into a new community, even if you don't know someone there, at least you're familiar. You've been introduced to the different traditions. You know people who you trust. Perhaps some of your stereotypes have already been dealt with. And when you encounter someone from another tradition, there's an openness, there's a desire to work together. And I think that's not only good for you and your ministry, but it's good for the communities in which you serve. People often ask why they should study at Stellenbosch. I think I'm a bit biased about this, but I do happen to think that this is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Campus life at Stellenbosch University is wonderful. We have a very diverse and vibrant student community, over 30,000 students from all over the world.
no qualms about telling people that they were 4 of the best years of my life. It is a lovely place to study. It's not only beautiful, there are one of the advantages of Stellenbosch is that it's pretty much a university town. And although the tourism industry is quite a big one there and it brings a lot of people to the place, it's really shaped in terms of character by the students that are there.
So when you come here as a student, you'll be immediately part of a high-quality theological system of education, but also part of a wider world of theological training involving institutions from across the world, both in Africa and across the waters.
I've always experienced the lecturers and the professors at Stellenbosch to be exceptionally engaged in the lives of the students as well. It is not just that they have subject matter to bring across, but that they are really engaged also in the spiritual lives of the students.
Yeah, I think studying at a university is a wonderful, wonderful privilege, because our students who come to study theology here obviously get to do all of the things that churches want them to learn. They learn how to read the Bible carefully and critically, to think carefully about the history and tradition of the church. They get skills in order to engage their communities.
For our church, it's very important that interns, when they prepare for the ministry, experience different things. And so our church encourages people to do a 2-year internship.
And the norm is that you do 1 year in South Africa with a congregation. So you get sent to a specific congregation, and as an intern or a vikar in German, you do 1 service a month and work under a mentor and get a wide field of experience. And then you do 1 year overseas.
The whole point of that overseas year is that you experience something completely different to what you know at home. When you get into a completely different environment, you then experience that what you take for granted here is completely different somewhere else. And so you start asking yourself the questions, why do we do what we do? What are the things that sit behind that? And that's very good for an internship, and so our church encourages that. I think one of the lovely things about serving in the body of Christ is that the body of Christ is all about people being different members that have different tasks and different gifts to serve that body. And it's pretty much the same with pastors. You have ones who have completely different gifts to others, so it takes all kinds. The church actually needs the different strength that different pastors have got, so that together they can serve the church well.
It takes any kind of person, every kind of person.
I think in terms of personality, I would not like to nail it down to one specific type of personality.
You can be introverted, you can be extroverted, you can be a quiet person, you can sing really well, you can not sing. Any kind of person, God can use anyone.
You can have all the talents and all the PR gifts to be wonderful with people and all of that, and you be a brilliant pastor. And at the same time, you can be the opposite, and God still makes you a pastor, and He adds to that you don't have by nature.
We had a pastor's retreat last year, and we did a course on, it's called Enneagram, 9 different character types. And we found that amongst us pastors, there were 9 different characters.
I have a number 3 personality, if you know the Enneagram. And a number 3 personality enjoys the stage. So that's one of the advantages of being a pastor. You have the stage and you can, so youth services like today, where you can have a variety of music, a lot of people involved in the service, preaching. I really enjoy that.
I don't know, I can't imagine any other job there where you'll get such a deep sense of purpose and belonging. Yeah. Takes a while getting used to having Mondays as your day off. That's true. But you get to spend a lot of time with your family.
What I love about my job is that there are so many things that I enjoy doing. And there are also difficulties along the way, but the things that I enjoy doing strengthen me and encourage me to carry on dealing with those things which are more difficult. I also have to say that some of the toughest things that I've done as a pastor have been some of the most memorable, and not in a negative sense. So some of the most difficult funerals I've had to do, but it's also very rewarding because people are at a place where they need help, they need comfort, and even in the process while you're busy doing it, it's difficult, and yet you recognize how much that means to people. So those are some of my most precious memories.
I'd say if you even have the inkling, then it's from God.
And so I really want to encourage people to consider studying theology. I want to encourage them to get involved in the ministry afterwards. It is very rewarding, and I certainly have no regrets doing this.
So my advice is don't run away.
And God, He never asks something of you that won't be good for you. So I would say just take that step into obedience, and it might be hard, it might be difficult, but I don't think you'll look back.